And welcome to another edition of Tech Talk. Great to have you with us. I'm James Weingard from Rice Lake Community Media in Northwest Wisconsin. And I'm being joined today by WTCO and Digital Media Department Director in Trempealeau County, Derek Westby. Hi, Derek.
Hey, James. How are you today?
I am well. Did I get the new title of your department correct?
Yes, we are the Digital Media Department now. Yes.
Good. I'm glad I got something right so far in this show. So we're like 30 seconds in, and I'm 1 for 7 so far. So good. So far, so good. What are we talking about today, Mr. Westby?
We're just going to talk about safety. There's a lot that goes into safety. There's the physical safety, which we'll talk about first, and then there's the online and digital safety aspect of it. So, James, what's in your opinion, what is the most important physical secure issue for technology?
So, in my opinion, take that for what it's worth, I think that the most important thing to have, and I suppose if we're talking about iPads or tablets or cell phones, or each of them kind of has their own protection issue, I suppose. So I guess let's start off with cell phones. And I think, to me, the most important part of protecting your cell phone is to have a case on it. And of course, there are any number of variety of cases. And I guess I'll back up here for half a second and say that a lot of the cell phone manufacturers now certainly have upgraded kind of the built-in protection of it. You know, they've made them sand-proof and dust-proof and waterproof to a certain degree. But I think there's still more that can be done because, you know, as we all know and love, if you go to a high-end flagship phone of, let's say, Apple, or let's say Samsung or LG or something like that, I mean, you're probably paying on the order of $1,000, maybe more. And to most of us, $1,000, if it happens to fall on the ground and smash into a million pieces, or the screen shatters, or whatever the ailment that befalls it happens, $1,000 is still a pretty healthy investment to just kind of walk away from and then just say, I guess I need a new one. So I'm a firm believer in having a case of some sort around my phone. And there are any number of them. There's the clear ones on the back that can show off, you know, if you're into really showing off the logo of whatever your phone happens to be, or, you know, as long as it's got the bumpers around the edges to make sure that if it falls on, you know, on an edge or even just flat on its back or something like that, that it'll be protected. And there'll be a little bit of a ridge on the front too, so if it happens to fall onto, you know, an uncarpeted floor or the sidewalk or something like that, at least, hopefully, maybe, the screen will be somewhat protected from, you know, falling right on and getting scratched up, or worse yet, damaged or cracked or broken or smashed or whatever. You know, and I think as part of that too, one could go into screen protection. You know, everybody's got their grimy fingers on phones, and kids especially, you know, they're out playing in the dirt or playing in their nose or whatever they happen to be doing, and then they go and play with mom's phone or dad's phone or their own phone for that matter, and, you know, it's very easy to get slimy stuff all over the front of their phones. So I think having that screen protection on there and making sure that, you know, and those are not exactly easily replaceable, but they certainly protect the screen itself from any potential unhappiness. I think some of the other things that one could possibly look at, and one that I carry around with me almost all the time, is a nicely padded laptop bag or a backpack. You know, I carry enough stuff with me, my backpack sitting right over there, that you know, it's got some decent padding to it. The shoulder straps are comfortable. You get inside, and I put my laptop in there. I can put my tablet in there. I can put, if I really wanted to, put my phones in there and things like that. So I think having that extra padding around there and little safety measure there really goes a long way toward my feeling comfortable. If it accidentally falls off my back or off my shoulder or whatever happens to be, then I'm not too terribly worried about it, having to replace it or something like that.
No horrible big heart attacks from dropping your bag, huh?
Not yet, and I actually have dropped it a couple of times with my laptop in it, and once I look in it and check everything and make sure that nothing has gone too terribly awry, then I can start breathing again and heart starts pumping again, and then we're good to go.
Well, and talking about phone protection, there's a lot of types of screen protection that you can get. There's a stick-on ones that used to be a big deal. Now they have those liquid ones that seem to work
The liquid glass, yeah.
really well. Some of these phones, like I have the Samsung phones, and they have Gorilla Glass, where it's got built-in glass protection. But I just want to share a story of I dropped a phone once, and it had a really good case and a really good screen protector. And I dropped it off of the roof of a press box 2 stories up, and it landed on the blacktop. And, the heart attack moment happens. Oh my God, it's gone. And then, I ran downstairs and picked it up, and my screen, or my case had a scratch. That was it, from 2 stories up on the blacktop. So that really goes to point out the whole, yes, it's important to get that case and screen protection and all that, because that phone would have been shattered without that stuff.
And then you'd have been in a bigger pickle than probably what you already were, because as we both can attest, running up and down stairs is not exactly easy for either of us. And I can equal your story. I had, of course, and actually you know this story about. Derek and I used to work together in a former city of ours, and we were doing a hockey game, and I had my tablet sitting up on our little perch, and it was sitting close-ish, probably closer than it should have been, to the edge of the table, and all of a sudden somebody bumped it, I just looked at it funny, and it started collapsing, and I thought, oh no. And now I'm 8 feet above the ice, and I'm thinking, well, there's a big pile of money down the drain. Well, what happened was it just had lost its footing within its case and was just collapsing down onto the case, but I thought for sure it was going over the edge. And once, the breathing came back and the heart attack was averted, I was like, okay, let's move this back over here and get it away from the edge, and now we're better.
Well, and so now we've talked a lot about the physical protection of transportable technology, but what about in your house? What about in your office? That kind of stuff.
Sure. And one of the things, especially in a situation like ours where we've got servers and lots of delicate computer equipment and TVs and recorders and playback machines and all of this sort of stuff, uninterrupted power supplies are going to probably save your bacon at some point, because anywhere in the country we're vulnerable to severe storms, or winter, summer, doesn't make any difference. And if the power happens to go out to your building, these power supplies will give you at least some time to save all of the information that would potentially have just been completely wiped out, erased, gone forever, had you not had it. So they can be a little pricey, a little expensive, but it's something that I would certainly encourage you to take a look into if you have a lot of sensitive data that you don't want potentially gone away in a heartbeat when it comes to power loss.
Well,
The other
and I don't mean to interrupt you, but with those UPSs, they're also far superior surge protectors than a normal surge protector. So if you have really expensive equipment, those are really important to have too. At my previous job, we had a $60,000 broadcasting system that the building took a really big power hit, and it completely fried the batteries on the uninterruptible power supply, but didn't harm any of the equipment. So they've got to be one of the best surge protectors you can get as well.
Yeah, and I think, and that's actually leading me into the other two of the other things I wanted to mention. One of which is just get a power strip. I mean, it's a surge protector. If you have a brownout, or if you've got a quick power hit for whatever reason, a squirrel gets into the power supply, a transformer nearby your home or your business or whatever it happens to be, and sends a shock up the line. Who's to say that your TV or your computer or whatever doesn't get blown up outside of, if you don't have a decent surge protector or power strip. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to mention, which goes back to Ben Franklin's days, I would say. Well, maybe not, because they probably didn't have a whole lot of stuff plugged in back in the 1700s, but regardless. When you see a storm coming, and it's a very simple thing that nobody ever thinks about anymore, and I suppose there's reasons maybe not to do this, but just unplug stuff when an electrical storm is coming through. I mean, I get it that you want to have, you want to be able to watch your local channel for weather information or, severe storm information or whatever it happens to be. But if you get that surge that comes through, well, the potential is there that your TV could get blown up or whatever. But, as we talked about in a recent episode of Tech Talk, we all have, or not all of us, but a goodly majority of us have data devices where you can get the information as well from TV, from internet, from your phone, anything like that. So, just the simple act of unplugging computers, TVs, maybe not necessarily appliances, but I would say the big electronic devices like that would be just a real simple, easy way to avoid any possible problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we're kind of through the whole how to protect your hardware, well, how do you protect yourself? There's a whole lot going on digitally that people have to be concerned about as well. Like, for example, one thing people never think about: your printer. You were talking about keeping your hardware safe from storms. Your printer needs to be safe from your storm too, but your printer also needs to be safe from the internet. One thing people don't understand is that printers have what's called firmware. Lots of devices have firmware, and you have to do firmware updates. But printers have been one of the things that people have been hacking lately, so that every time you send a print job, they get a copy of it. So if you print off, say, your tax return, well, now those people have your social security number, your address, your previous address, where you work, all this stuff, without you even knowing it. So with printers, just always check the firmware if they connect to the internet at all. Like, for example, in your office at Rice Lake Community Media, your printer is directly hooked up to your computer, so you don't have to worry so much about that. Here in the building I work in, our printer is a network printer. So somebody could easily hack into a printer and steal information as you print it.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely spot on with that, is that people don't think about that sort of stuff potentially very often, or at least, everybody kind of drives toward hackers get into your computer, you get into your files, but in essence, the printer kind of is a file, is it not?
It's definitely a file like repository. You send stuff to it, it spits out paper. But if somebody has hacked into your printer and installed, additional software into your hardware, you send something to the printer thinking, oh, it's safe. When I'm done with it, I'll shred it. Well, you get a copy, but they get a copy, and it's not as safe as people think it is. Wireless printers, if you don't completely set them up, they have just a default wireless connection that anybody can. They're not necessarily stealing your information, but they can waste your ink, your paper. They could print off all kinds of everything just being within a wireless network range. I mean, if you live in an apartment building or townhomes or something, and you have a wireless printer without a password and it's all set up and just ready for anybody to use it, your neighbor kid could print off all kinds of crazy stuff on your printer and waste all your paper and your ink and that kind of stuff. But of course, that's just the physical printer, not the computer, where there's so many vulnerabilities in the computer itself.
So as we look into other protection ideas when it comes to computers and things like that, what's the number one thing that you recommend people to do right away?
Always have the most up-to-date antivirus, spyware, all that kind of stuff. Always have the most up-to-date. The top companies switch back and forth, kind of like the billionaires switch back and forth. So you never know which one's considered the best for that week. But as long as you have one of the top 5 providers and it's updated and you make sure it's always up to date, you have a better chance. Nothing's foolproof. Nothing will keep. There's always the human element that can introduce it as well. For example, you might end up with an email that says, "Oh, you forgot to pay your cell phone bill. Click this link to pay your cell phone bill." Well, that link might not actually be to your cell phone provider. It might be to a scammer's website that'll pop up and say, "Oh no, now there's a problem with Microsoft Windows. Call this number and give us access to your computer." And then they start holding your stuff hostage on you. So you have to be really diligent about making sure, one, you have good antivirus, but also you're actually paying attention to what you're looking at. One thing I always do, no matter what, even if I'm expecting an email, I'll put my cursor over it and read where it's actually taking me. Because if I'm going to, for example, go to the AT&T website, and I get an email from AT&T, or what looks like AT&T, and I put my mouse over it, and it's like xyz.info/AT&T lookalike / there's a lot of that going on. Those emails are called phishing, where they're phishing for data. They're sending them out to all these places. Yep, they're casting it out, reeling it in, and they tend to hit people that aren't paying as good of attention as they should be, and that's where they steal all your information. They might install tracking software on your computer. Ransomware has been huge lately. It's been cities and people and all kinds of stuff all around the country are getting hit with ransomware.
It's something really that cities probably need to watch out for, because you get an attack like that and ransomware or something along those lines, and all of a sudden you've got all the tax rolls being downloaded and shipped out and being sold on the dark web or wherever it happens to end up, and now all of your citizens' address, social, how much they paid, where they paid, all of that information, all gone.
Yeah, and I've at some of the places that I've been at, they've had really nasty ransomware attacks that have completely crippled their email and phone communications for weeks. And as a government agency, that's a problem. But on a smaller scale than that, I mean, another thing people need to do to protect themselves is monitor what you're actually doing online and what you're putting out there. A lot of people have social media. It's like 57% of just Wisconsin has Facebook, right? So you've got to secure your social media. That's another big thing, because if you put out there, my kid such and such has his birthday on this day with this, well, okay, well now you've just given away, a very likely combination of passwords, or you took a picture of your first car 10 years ago, and some of the security questions are, what was your first car? Well, you posted it 10 years ago. They just have to look. Or a lot of those, Facebook images that say things like, oh, what's the color of this or this, or what's the color of your first car? Well, those might seem like fun to answer, but don't. That gives all kinds of information. Half of those questions that you see on there are the same questions used in security questions. Where did you first live? Where did you first where were you born? Don't answer that stuff.
One of the things that I find and have kind of always done, especially with my social media, is if I go on a trip somewhere, if I go to Madison or I go to New York or wherever it happens to be, one, I always tell people, please don't post anything that I've gone away until I get home. Then post away, tag me, do whatever you want. Because I don't necessarily want somebody to know, hey, guess what? My house is empty for 3, 4, 5, 8 days, this time that I'm not home. It's real easy to kind of overlook those little minor details to say, well, you've just opened yourself up to a big vulnerability.
Yeah, and ways to help that is, keep your social media private. So then I think I have maybe 60 people on Facebook. So I have things, and of those 60 people, I have them segregated into different groups again, where this is my close people, this is my acquaintances, this post can only be seen by my close people, this post can be seen by acquaintances. Keep things private, keep things tight like that. Again, don't post videos or pictures or anything until you get back and say, oh, look at this vacation I just got back from. Don't say, look at my vacation, because people might then break into your house while you're there, and that causes all kinds of things. Another thing people don't always follow is a lot of websites and stuff have minimum ages. Like, for example, you have to be 12 to have a Facebook. Don't make your 7, 8, 9-year-old kid a Facebook account. Just don't do it. Don't fake their birthday. There's kid add-ons to adult Facebook profiles. Like, for example, my son has Kids Messenger. Anybody who wants to talk to him on there, I get a little blip that says, is this person okay to talk to your kid? Yes, my brother-in-law can send my child a Facebook message. And then it says, well, who did he talk to most this week, and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's all through my Facebook and my wife's Facebook, and we can monitor that. Don't make your child a Facebook account or a Twitter, or don't have them make a YouTube channel that you're not heavily monitoring.
We need to do more than what we do, because, as you say very adeptly, that there are certainly some opportunities out there for people to get into your system and cause problems and chaos and mayhem. Are there any sort of steps that for people? I think most of us have probably gone down the social media rabbit hole for quite a distance at this point. Are there steps that you would recommend? Kind of, I guess, quickly, because I think we're probably pretty close to time here, but are there some quick steps that you can have people take a look at, maybe some settings, things like that, real quick, as to keep themselves safe?
Well, Facebook has an option where you can do a security audit, and Google does that as well. if you're not sure, do those audits. Make sure that you check into that stuff. Facebook has an option where you can click a button and it makes your post and everything previously private. So even if it was public back then, it'll go back and say, no, now that's private. Always make sure you keep your stuff private. Don't share stuff you don't want everybody to know. Don't share, your kids' names and their date of birth, your mother's maiden name. Don't go down the list where it goes, where did you live and what was your mother's maiden name and the first car you drove. You just gave them all your security questions. Just think about stuff before you post it, and be safe. There's so much out there that's not safe. Just don't trust the internet.
But Derek, it's fun to do the list of 45 questions as to where was my first school and where was my first vacation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, then print it off and fill it out by hand and put it in your locked filing cabinet or through your paper shredder. Don't do it online where everybody can get it. Don't do it and then print it off where the person that hacked into your printer can get it. Print it off blank, fill it out by hand for fun, and then put it through the paper shredder.
And that's going to do it for today's No Fun League. Or is it? Do you have anything else to add for today's show?
Nope, that's about all I've got. I mean, it's just, there's so much that people can do to keep their stuff safe, whether physically, digitally, online, all that kind of stuff. Back up your computers, back up your servers. Be smart about it.
Update your system.
Always, always, always update your operating system, your printer firmware, your router firmware, everything.
And just for the record, I joke a little bit about this, but I do take it very seriously because, as Derek points out, there are certainly a lot of options and opportunities out there for people to take advantage of some maybe relaxed security opportunities out there. So I may joke a little bit about it, but I really do take this all seriously. But so I kind of egg him along to give us a little more detail on it, just to be clear.
And always do your own research.
Yes, do your own research into what works best for your situation. We're here kind of as a guideline for you, but always do your own research for your best and most personal situation. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, so that's going to do it for this edition of Tech Talk. I'm James Weingard, the Executive Director of Rice Lake Community Media.
And I'm Derek Westby, Digital Media Director for Trempealeau County and WTCO TV. And we'll see you next time.